The girl who saw the invisible killer, 17 of the best doctors in the world, were summoned to save the only son of one of the richest people on the planet, a child suffering from a strange illness that no one could explain, that no test could detect, and no treatment could cure. As his condition worsened and the entire hospital plunged into chaos, hope began to fade until a quiet 8-year-old girl, the daughter of a cleaner, noticed something that no one else saw. What she saw would not only change the course of one life, but would reveal a shocking truth that was hidden in plain sight. Chapter 1. The Invisible Observer. New York City. Victor Vance's son was only 10 years old, but he was already at the center of a terrifying mystery. Victor was one of the richest people in the pharmaceutical world, with connections and power in every corner of the planet. But even his influence could not fix what was happening to his son. The boy was urgently rushed to St. Jude's Medical Center, a private clinic, in critical condition. His body was failing, but no one knew why. His vital signs were falling rapidly. His oxygen levels were dangerously low, and his skin had acquired a strange gray tint. The situation was so serious that they called in 17 of the best doctors from all over the world. They did analysis after analysis, but all the results were normal. No one could understand what was happening. The hospital was filled with stress and fear. Journalists crowded outside. There was security everywhere. People from all over the world were watching and waiting. Inside the hospital, everyone felt the tension and urgency, but there were still no answers. The boy was getting worse, and time was running out. Amidst all this chaos, there was also a girl in the hospital named Lily. Lily was only 8 years old, and she was from a poor family. She was there because her mother worked as a cleaner at the hospital. While her mother mopped the corridors and wards, Lily sat quietly and watched everything that was happening around her. No one paid any attention to her. She was neither a doctor, nor a nurse, nor anyone important. But Lily had a sharp eye. She had seen a lot in her short life, including something very sad, the recent death of her father. She had not forgotten a single detail of his last days, how he looked, how his body changed, and how the doctors also did not know what was happening to him. Now, looking at Victor Vance's son, she found something familiar in the boy's condition. The way his skin looked, how his breathing changed, and how the doctors were confused. All of this reminded her of her father. Lily didn't know much, but she knew what she had seen before. As she continued to watch, Lily began to feel something deep inside. The memory of her father's illness returned with clarity. It wasn't just a feeling, it was a clear sign. She had seen the same thing before, and suddenly, everything fell into place. She didn't understand all the medical terms or the machines, but her memory was strong. While everyone around her panicked, she remained calm. She focused on what she remembered and compared it to what she was seeing now. The color of the boy's skin, the way his chest moved while he tried to breathe, and the way none of the doctors could find a cause. Everything was exactly the same as in her father's last days. Lily didn't have a medical education, but she had something the others didn't have, a memory full of pain and loss. This memory gave her knowledge that the doctors didn't have. The doctors continued to be at a loss. They looked at the monitors, argued among themselves, and repeated the tests again and again. They couldn't explain why the boy's oxygen level was so low. They tried different methods of treatment, but nothing helped. Every new result was normal. To them, it made no sense. One of the doctors even said that it was like fighting a ghost, something real but invisible. Meanwhile, Lily was nearby, quiet but attentive. She wasn't allowed to enter the ward, but she watched from the corridor. No one noticed her, which allowed her to see everything without being interrupted. And at that moment, a thought occurred to Lily. a very strong one. It wasn't just a guess. It was something she truly believed. She realized that there was something wrong that all the doctors had missed. And not because they weren't smart, but because they didn't see what she had already seen before. Lily thought about telling someone, but who would listen to her? She was just a child and wasn't even a patient. Her mother was just a cleaner. No one in the hospital would believe an 8-year-old girl. But Lily couldn't let go of what she saw. She continued to watch the boy in the hope that maybe someone would notice the same thing as her. The more she thought about it, the more sure she was. She wasn't mistaken. She knew exactly what she was seeing. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from certainty. Lily wasn't trying to be a heroine. She just knew that something was wrong, and she was probably the only one who could recognize it. It wasn't about being right. It was about saving the boy, who had little time left. Chapter 2: The Silent Scream. Inside the hospital room, the devices continued to beep. The doctors looked increasingly worried. Nothing was working. Outside, the media was getting louder. Reporters were trying to get at least some news. Security guards held back the crowd. But for Lily, none of this mattered. Her eyes remained fixed on the boy. The memory of her father was very vivid in her mind. She remembered how his skin looked, how he fought for every breath, and how no one helped him in time. She didn't want the same thing to happen to this boy. Lily didn't know how to speak up or with whom she could do it. But deep down, she knew she had to do something. She felt that if she didn't act, no one else would. This thought gave her courage, even if she didn't fully understand what was happening. Lily took a deep breath and looked around. Her mother continued to work and didn't notice her daughter's serious expression. The doctors were too busy trying to figure out what was wrong. Lily took a step toward the edge of the corridor, enough to see better. The boy's condition wasn't changing. He was still in danger. Lily felt that bright flash again. It wasn't just a memory anymore. It was an understanding. She remembered the exact moment when her father's symptoms began, and now she saw the same thing in the boy. Lily didn't know what the doctors would say or if anyone would believe her, but she was sure of one thing. She had seen this before, and now she knew what was happening. Maybe, just maybe, she could help if someone simply listened to her. Lily stood in the hospital corridor, watching people run back and forth. Nurses moved quickly. Doctors shouted orders, and machines beeped from different rooms. She tried to speak to one of the nurses passing by. She gently pulled on her scrubs and said she needed to talk, but the nurse didn't stop. She didn't even look at Lily, just continued walking as if Lily didn't exist. Lily tried again with another nurse, but the result was the same. No one wanted to listen to what she wanted to say. This frustrated Lily. She knew what she was seeing, and she was sure it was important. She ran to her mother, who was washing the floor nearby, and tried to explain it to her. She talked about the boy, and that he looked exactly like her father before he died. But her mother didn't believe her. She told her to stop. She said that Lily was just remembering sad things because of her father's death. She thought it was just grief, not something real. Lily shook her head. She knew it was real. Lily couldn't forget the days spent with her father in the hospital. She was always quiet, but she remembered everything. Her father couldn't breathe properly. Every day his breathing got worse. The color of his skin changed from normal to gray. There was a strange smell in the hospital room, something Lily didn't understand at that moment. But now, all of this was happening again. Not with her father, but with the son of a billionaire. She saw it before, and now she saw it again. It wasn't a deceptive memory. It was real, and it was happening again. Her father worked hard every day. He was a construction worker. And before getting sick, he had just returned from work in South America. He was healthy before the trip, but something changed after his return. The doctors never found out what caused his illness. He stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks, but they couldn't save him. No one had answers. Exactly like now, Lily thought about the doctors. Back then, they also seemed confused. They checked everything, just like now. They did all the tests, they studied all the numbers, but nothing explained why her father was dying. Now it was the same with the boy. 17 doctors were trying to save him, and yet nothing worked. Lily didn't understand all the science behind it, but she didn't need to. What she understood was what she saw. She didn't need a machine to tell her what was wrong. She could clearly see it with her own eyes, and this made her even more certain that it wasn't just a sad coincidence. It wasn't something normal. Something very bad was happening again. Her father died, and now another person was going through the same thing. She couldn't ignore it. Not this time. Before, she was silent, but now she felt she had to speak. Lily looked around the hospital again. Everyone was too busy to stop and listen, but she didn't want to give up. She remembered how helpless she felt when her father was sick. She didn't want that to repeat. She didn't want this boy to die the same way. She felt she was the only person who understood what was happening. She didn't have proof, but she had a memory. That was all she had, and it had to be enough. She kept thinking about that smell in the room. It wasn't the usual hospital smell. It was strange, and it was back. The boy's breathing was shallow, like her father's. His gray skin was also the same as her father's. Lily knew these signs. They weren't accidental. She felt strongly that something connected the two cases. The doctors missed it before. Maybe they were missing it again. Lily didn't want to lose another person in the same way. Her mother tried to seat her, told her to be quiet, and let the doctors work. But Lily couldn't be silent. She felt something growing inside her, a need to act. She wasn't trying to cause trouble. She just wanted someone to listen to her. She was small, and her voice didn't reach far, but she was ready to raise it if necessary. The fear she felt before was starting to turn into courage. She was silent when her father died. No one asked her what she thought, and maybe then she wouldn't have known what to say. But now she knew. She saw the same thing happening twice. That meant it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't just bad luck. This time, she had to be heard. She didn't care if people thought she was just a sad girl. She knew the truth, and that had to be more important than anything else. Lily straightened up. Her mother kept telling her to stop, to calm down. But Lily wasn't listening anymore. She looked toward the hospital room where the boy lay. The machines kept beeping, the doctors kept running, and the nurses kept scurrying back and forth. Nothing changed. The boy was still dying, and no one knew why. But Lily knew. Perhaps not from a medical point of view, but she knew it from experience. She knew it through pain. She didn't want to scream, but she would do it if she had to. Someone had to notice. Someone had to stop and look at what she was pointing at. She couldn't let another person die just because no one listened. Her father was poor. No one paid attention to his case. But this boy was the son of one of the most powerful people in the world. Maybe that meant that now someone would care. Maybe this time, the truth wouldn't be ignored. Lily was ready to speak loud and clear. Chapter 3: The Confrontation. Lily walked down the hospital corridors, clutching a folder tightly to her chest. Inside were her father's old medical documents. The folder was worn and had been lying at their home since he died. She had never opened it before. But now, with everything happening to the billionaire's son, she took it out of the drawer where her mother kept it. She read every page carefully, trying to understand the medical terms. Most of them made no sense to her, but she was looking for the important parts, the ones that matched what she saw in the boy. Now, holding this folder under her arm, she walked with determination. Her eyes were looking for one person: Dr. Morrison. He was the head of the hospital's medical team and the one trying to save the boy. Lily had seen him several times near the ICU. She waited until she saw him coming out of the ward. He looked tired, as if he hadn't slept for days. Nevertheless, Lily took a deep breath, stood in front of him, and said she needed to talk. Dr. Morrison stopped, surprised to see a girl there with such a serious face and a thick folder in her hands. He was clearly in a hurry, but something in Lily's eyes made him stop. She told him it was important. She said it was about the sick boy. At first he hesitated, but then he led her to a quieter corner where they could talk for a minute. Lily opened the folder and showed him the papers. She told him they belonged to her father, who died a few months ago. She explained that her father had the same symptoms as the boy. Dr. Morrison listened silently, looking through the documents. His face remained calm, but Lily saw that he was thinking. She began to describe her father's condition step by step. She told him about the gray skin, the lack of air, and how the doctors never found the cause. Then she mentioned that there was a strange smell in the room, exactly the same as now. Dr. Morrison looked at her again, this time more attentively. As Lily continued to speak, she gave more details. She remembered everything distinctly, despite being very small when it happened. She told Dr. Morrison that her father was healthy before he went to work abroad. Then she explained how after returning, his health began to deteriorate rapidly. Her voice remained firm while she spoke. She told him about her father's complexion, about how he couldn't breathe, and how nothing the doctors did helped him get better. Dr. Morrison was silent, but continued to turn the pages. He saw the hospital records, the test results, and how similar all the details were. Then Lily said something that made him stop turning the pages. She mentioned how her father began to complain about his throat. He told her and her mother that he felt like something was scratching him from the inside. Not like a sore throat from a cold. It was deeper. An itch that didn't stop. Dr. Morrison blinked and looked intently at Lily. This was something new. This detail didn't appear in the boy's tests, but it made something click in his head. A pattern began to form. Dr. Morrison looked at the folder again. He didn't smile and didn't speak much. But Lily noticed that he was no longer ignoring her. Her words were reaching him. This wasn't just a child's imagination. There was a real connection. Two different patients with identical, inexplicable signs. Lily continued to talk, afraid that if she stopped, he would leave. She repeated the strange symptoms and reminded him that the doctors never found answers for her father. Now, the same thing was happening again. She said that maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe the same thing that killed her father was harming this boy. She didn't know the name of the disease, but she knew the signs. Dr. Morrison thought, and just as he was about to speak, a loud siren sounded in the corridor. Lily turned her head quickly. The sound came from the ICU. Someone shouted that the boy's condition was worsening again. Dr. Morrison jumped up immediately. The conversation was cut short abruptly. He ran to the ICU without hesitation. Nurses and other doctors followed him. Lily didn't move from her spot. She stayed there, holding the folder. She watched the corridor fill with activity again. But she knew something had changed. For the first time, someone had listened to her. The doctor might not have said much, but his eyes changed when she mentioned the itch in the throat. It was a detail no one had considered before, and although he had to leave in a rush, Lily knew her words left a mark. As the ICU doors closed behind the running staff, Lily sat on a bench nearby. She was tired too. She used all her courage to speak up, but she didn't regret it. She did what she had to do. Finally, she raised her voice, and now everything was in the doctor's hands. Inside the ICU, Dr. Morrison was surrounded by machines and voices. He quickly examined the boy, shouted orders to the team, and tried to stabilize him. But part of his mind was still with Lily. Her words were stuck in his head. The strange smell, the skin color, and above all, the sensation in the throat. The itch. No test results pointed to a clear cause, but now he wondered if they had been looking in the wrong direction all this time. Could it be that a girl of only 8 years noticed what 17 expert doctors missed? He didn't know yet. He needed to think carefully. But something in Lily's story felt real. It wasn't just emotions. She remembered details with amazing accuracy. This alarmed him. It meant they could be facing something new or something very rare. And if it was true, the boy's life could depend on whether they discovered it fast enough. Outside the ICU, Lily continued to wait. She didn't expect to be called again. She didn't think Dr. Morrison would come out to thank her, but she hoped he would remember what she said. She hoped he would use the folder and check the documents when he had time. For her, it wasn't just about the billionaire's son. It was also about her father. She didn't want his death to be forgotten. If her story could help save someone else, then maybe she wouldn't feel such emptiness. Lily leaned against the wall, hugging the folder. She was still just a child, and the hospital was big and noisy. But in that moment, she no longer felt invisible. She did her part. She brought the truth to someone who had the power to act. Now she could only wait and hope that finally, someone was paying attention. Chapter 4, The Discovery. That night, Lily sat silently by a small window in the corner of the hospital waiting room. The lights were dimmed, and most people had already left. But Lily remained there. Her mother had finished cleaning and was talking to another worker down the hall. But Lily was immersed in her thoughts. Her mind returned again and again to her father. She remembered the last weeks with him, as if it happened yesterday. Every moment remained in her memory, especially the strange things the doctors ignored. One afternoon, when he was very sick, her father had a severe coughing fit. Lily sat next to him, holding his hand. After the cough stopped, he looked at her and said something that was forever etched in her memory. He told her, "Something is stuck here. It feels alive." He pointed to his throat, but the doctor said it was just confusion, that he was tired and sick and not thinking clearly. Lily believed him, and now with everything happening, she believed him even more. She also remembered something else, the smell in the room. Back then it bothered her, but no one else seemed to care. It wasn't the typical smell of medicines or cleaning products. It was different. It smelled like something damp, like wet earth after rain, but mixed with something worse. It reminded her of something rotten, something that shouldn't be there. This smell stayed in her head for months. Now, every time she passed the boys' ward, she noticed it again. It was faint, but it was there. The same strange smell made her feel a bit sick, but most of all, it made her feel certain. This is not a coincidence. What happened to her father was happening again. The day her father died, she saw something no one else saw. He started shaking in bed, and his whole body moved in a strange way. Then, while the doctors tried to help him, Lily saw something come out of his mouth. It happened quickly. He opened his mouth, and something small and strange came out. It wasn't something normal, like vomit or blood. It was something else. Lily didn't know what it was, but she saw it clearly. It fell onto the sheets and disappeared before anyone noticed. She tried to tell the nurses, but they didn't listen to her. They said she was scared, and that she was making it all up. After that, no one mentioned it again. But Lily never forgot. Now, as the boy lay in the hospital bed, just like her father, and with the same symptoms, the memory returned stronger than ever. The smell, the breathing problems, the skin color, and now the memory of what she saw coming out of her father's mouth. Everything was linking together. Lily sat still for a long time, thinking. Then something changed in her. She wasn't afraid anymore. She knew she was right, and if no one else was going to act, then she had to do it herself. Lily knew people wouldn't take her seriously. She was just an 8-year-old girl. Nurses ignored her. Doctors were too busy. Even her mother thought she was just reacting out of her sadness. But Lily didn't care anymore. She was done waiting for someone else to understand. She had the memory, she had the signs, and she had the courage to do something about it. This thought scared her, but it also gave her strength. If no one would help her look for answers, then she would do it alone. She didn't have tools or knowledge, but she had something better. She had seen it before. She knew what to look for. And most importantly, she knew where to look. Everything pointed to the same place, the throat. Her father pointed there, and now the boy showed the same signs. The doctors were looking everywhere except the right place. But Lily knew the answer was in the same place both patients complained about. She thought about how to act. She knew she couldn't just walk into the boy's ward without permission. There were always nurses nearby, and sometimes security guards. But maybe there would be a moment when no one was looking. Maybe she could get close enough to check. She didn't want to harm anyone. She only wanted to prove that what she saw was real. She didn't have a full plan yet, but she knew this was the most important thing. To find out if there was something stuck in the boy's throat. It wasn't just a theory anymore. She believed in it completely. The strange breathing, the color of his skin, the smell, the memories of her father saying he felt something alive inside. Everything pointed to the same cause. Lily didn't think it was a disease. It felt like something else, something physical, something the doctors didn't see. She saw it once before, and now she needed to see it again. This time clearly, and with proof that no one could ignore. Lily felt nervous but also determined. She wasn't doing this for attention or to prove she was right. She was doing it because she believed she could save the boy's life. Her father died without anyone understanding why. Lily couldn't bring him back, but maybe she could prevent the same thing from repeating. If she was right, waiting meant the boy wouldn't survive. This thought was too heavy to ignore. She looked at the corridor one last time. The hospital was quieter at this hour. The lights were dimmed, and footsteps were almost inaudible. Her mother was still working in another part of the building. Lily stood up, still holding the memories of that last day with her father. She would never forget what she saw. And now, with this memory so clear in her mind, she made a decision. She would try to find out the truth, no matter what. She was just a child, but she knew something no one else knew. That had to be worth something. Lily stopped in front of the boy's ward, with her heart pounding in her chest. The corridor was busy as always. But at that moment, the medical team was called to another emergency in another area of the ICU. There were no nurses, and Dr. Morrison had left the area a few minutes before. This was her chance. She didn't want to do anything wrong, but she knew she had to act now. No one else believed her. She looked around one last time, then pushed the door and entered the ward. The lights were dimmed, and the machines made a quiet beep. The boy lay motionless on the hospital bed. His chest rose and fell with every weak and shallow breath. He was unconscious, and his pale face made his body look fragile. Lily walked closer. She was scared, but she had already made up her mind. Her eyes fixed on his throat. She remembered what her father said, and what she herself saw. There was something there. She had no doubts, and now she was going to prove it. On a small medical cart near the bed, she saw a set of tools. Everything looked clean and orderly. Lily didn't know the names of the tools, but she recognized one long metal pair of forceps. She took a pair of gloves from a box on the shelf and put them on with trembling hands. Then she carefully took the forceps and held her breath. The boy's mouth was slightly open. Lily moved slowly. She wasn't a doctor. She didn't want to hurt him, but she was sure of what she was doing. She opened his mouth a little wider, using her fingers to hold it open enough. She leaned in and looked inside. At first, everything seemed normal. Then, changing the angle, She saw something. It was small, dark, and located deep in his throat. It moved slightly. Lily's hands shook even harder. It was alive. Her father was right. Something lived inside him. And now the same thing was inside this boy. Lily inserted the forceps. She moved slowly and very carefully. Her fingers were cold and sweaty inside the gloves. She tried to grab the thing, but it moved deeper. She adjusted the position of the forceps and tried again. This time, she managed to grab it. She felt it squirm as she pulled. Her hands trembled, but she didn't stop. Centimeter by centimeter, she pulled it out. The thing was long, thin, and had legs. A centipede. It was dark brown and kept moving. It slipped out of the forceps and fell onto the white sheet. At that exact moment, 2 nurses entered the ward. They froze, seeing Lily there, holding the forceps and the centipede crawling next to the boy. One of them screamed. Seconds later, more people ran into the room. Doctors shouted, sirens sounded. Lily took a step back as everyone surrounded the boy. But then something unexpected happened. The machine started beeping differently. His breathing became stronger. His color began to return. Everyone could see it. The boy stabilized, and Lily had pulled out what was killing him. Dr. Morrison arrived moments later. He heard the alarm and ran to the ward. When he entered and saw the chaos, his eyes immediately went to the boy. Then he saw Lily, the forceps, and the creature. He walked over and looked at the centipede. His face changed. At first, he said nothing, only watched. Then he took a clean glass jar from the cart, opened it, and used a tool to place the centipede inside. The insect was still alive, moving inside the jar. Everyone in the room watched silently. No one had seen anything like this inside a patient. Dr. Morrison looked at Lily. He didn't scream. He wasn't angry. He just looked at her with disbelief and without words. The machines next to the boy now beeped calmly. His condition had completely changed. The doctors and nurses couldn't believe what had just happened. A girl of only 8 years saved the boy's life by doing something none of them could imagine. Doubt. CTA, mid-story. Can you believe an 8-year-old solved the mystery? But this creature isn't a normal disease. Where did it come from? The truth is darker than you think. Keep watching to find out. Chapter fought the investigation. The ICU was full of amazement. Nurses spoke in whispers. Some doctors looked at the jar with horror. Others looked at Lily, still not understanding how she knew what to do. But the results were clear. The boy's vital signs improved the moment the creature was removed. No one could deny that. Dr. Morrison finally broke the silence. He asked Lily where she learned to do something like that. She explained again about her father and the same symptoms. She told them about the smell, the gray skin, the itch in the throat. She told them how she saw something come out of her father's mouth before he died. At first, no one believed her, but now with the centipede in the jar, they had to. Dr. Morrison nodded slowly. He still didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing. Lily was right. Everyone in the ward understood that now. However, a question remained, one that made the situation much more serious. Doctors began to talk about the creature. It looked like nothing they had encountered before in their hospital. It looked like a parasitic centipede, but no one could say for sure. Dr. Morrison said they would have to study it and send it to experts. But the most puzzling fact was that the boy had never left the country. He never went to Africa or any other distant place. So how did this get inside his body? This was the part no one could answer. Everyone looked at each other in confusion and alarm. A parasite couldn't appear on its own. It had to come from somewhere or someone, and that meant something very disturbing. Someone put it there. This changed everything. It was no longer just a strange medical case. It was something else. Someone did this on purpose. As the room plunged into silence again, Lily took a step back. She did what she came for. But now new questions arose. Questions no one expected. Lily didn't speak anymore. She stayed by the wall, watching everything. The doctors continued to check the boy. His condition improved rapidly, his breathing was strong, and his color was normal. The parasite was now locked in a jar on a nearby table. Nurses passed by it, looking at it like something that didn't belong in this world. Dr. Morrison spoke in a low voice with other doctors, but Lily managed to hear a few words. This shouldn't be possible. The situation was already bigger than the ICU. Soon it would reach the media, the police, and maybe even the government. But for Lily, none of this mattered. For her, it was about doing the right thing. Her father died because no one believed him. She kept silent before, but not this time. This time, she spoke and acted. The boy was alive because of it. She looked at him one last time, and then turned to the door. Whatever happened next, she had already done the most important thing. The hospital was now on maximum alert. After the discovery of the centipede extracted from the boy's throat, everything changed. Security was strengthened. Meetings were held. Experts were called. Staff was asked to remain vigilant and report anything unusual. The parasite was placed in a sealed medical container, and samples were sent for immediate analysis. A specialist in tropical medicine arrived quickly and examined the creature. After a thorough inspection, he confirmed what many feared. The centipede was a rare parasite found only in certain zones of Africa. It was known for attacking the throat and slowly feeding on mucous tissue. Without treatment, it could cause death from suffocation or infection. Everyone fell silent when he said these words. The parasite couldn't appear naturally in New York. That was a fact. It needed a specific environment to survive. And this hospital in this country was not that environment. This meant only one thing. Someone placed it inside the boy intentionally. This was the most frightening part. Investigations began immediately. Dr. Morrison, now fully aware that the case was no longer just medical, worked with the hospital administration to review every detail of the last few days. Security began analyzing CCTV footage of the VIP area where the boy was located. They were looking for something out of place, someone who shouldn't be there. While they worked, Lily was interviewed again. She had already proven she knew things no one else knew. Now, investigators wanted to know if she saw anything else. During the interview, Lily sat quietly and still at first. But then she remembered something. She told them that in the days before the boy got worse, she saw a man entering the ward several times. He wore a lab coat and a badge, just like the other doctors. But there was something about him that always seemed strange to her. She remembered he entered even when the regular doctors had already left. Sometimes very late at night, outside visiting hours. The security team focused on this lead. They checked the footage from the corridor cameras near the boys' ward. After hours of searching, they found what they were looking for. There was a man who didn't match any name in the hospital staff records. He wore a white coat and a badge. But when they zoomed in, they noticed the badge was fake. It didn't have a real ID number and no assigned department. He moved through the VIP wing as if he belonged there, entering and leaving the boys' ward multiple times. No one questioned him at that moment. He blended in easily, looking like just another member of the medical team. But now with Lily's description and video evidence, it was clear he wasn't a doctor. He wasn't a hospital employee. And worst of all, he had direct access to the boy. This completely changed the direction of the investigation. It wasn't about an accident or a rare infection anymore. It was something much darker. The hospital confirmed this person was never hired, never passed a background check, and wasn't listed on any employee list. This discovery was shocking. It meant someone went to great lengths to create a fake identity, penetrate a secure zone, and get close to a carefully guarded patient, the son of one of the most powerful people in the country. The cameras didn't show what he did inside the ward, but now, with the parasite found in the boy's throat, the conclusion seemed obvious. The centipede didn't get there by accident. It was placed intentionally. It was no longer a medical mystery. It was an attempted murder. The parasite slowly fed on the tissue inside the boy's throat. The doctors didn't know what was happening, so the boy got worse and worse. If Lily hadn't acted, he would have died. The fake doctor was close to fulfilling his plan. Now the hospital had to understand how this happened, and why. A deeper inspection revealed even more disturbing details. The feeding behavior of the parasite was being supported by something. In the trash bin of the boys' ward, staff found residues of a strange liquid inside a small vial. Laboratory analysis confirmed they contained nutrients exactly matching the parasite's needs to keep it alive and growing inside the boy's throat. Someone was keeping it alive on purpose. This meant the goal wasn't a quick death. It was a slow, agonizing death, designed to look like a mysterious illness. Doctors would have kept trying to solve the boy's condition, but would never have found the real cause in time. If not for Lily's memory, courage, and actions, no one would have known the truth. The idea that someone did this on purpose inside a hospital was hard to accept. The staff couldn't believe it, but all signs pointed to a terrible fact. Someone wanted the boy dead and planned it with the utmost care. Questions now filled every conversation in the hospital. Who was the man in the coat? How did he manage to penetrate such a secure zone without being stopped? Why would anyone attack a child? Investigators checked hospital records, verified staff schedules, and studied every second of the footage. Dr. Morrison stayed close to the case, helping where he could. The centipede was sent to labs for more advanced research. The boy remained stable, slowly recovering from the trauma, but the mystery of who and why still remained unsolved. Everyone knew that Victor Vance, the boy's father, had many connections and power, which came with enemies. But no one could imagine something like this. The attack was quiet, well-planned, and almost impossible to detect. The parasite was rare and deadly, and the method was almost perfect. Everyone agreed. It was an attempt to make the boy's death look natural, like an unknown disease, but the plan failed. Thanks to Lily, the truth came out. Chapter 6: The Trap. The police investigation advanced quickly once the truth about the fake doctor opened up. After reviewing additional records, phone logs, and hospital data, authorities were finally able to confirm the intruder's identity. He wasn't an ordinary criminal. It was someone who was very close to Victor Vance, a former business partner who lost everything after a major legal dispute. Years ago, he and Victor worked together on a project in the pharmaceutical industry, but it ended badly. Courts ruled in favor of Victor, and the man went bankrupt. Since then, he disappeared from public life. No one knew where he went or what he did, but the truth was now clear. He had been planning his revenge for a long time. He didn't want to harm Victor directly. He wanted to destroy him in the worst possible way, by attacking his only son. This was the reason for everything. It wasn't something accidental. It was a plan full of hatred and a deep desire to cause pain. Investigators learned more about the man's past. He had extensive knowledge in biology and a history of traveling to remote regions of Africa. During that time, he learned about rare parasites, including the one he used in this crime. The centipede was not only hard to detect, but was also genetically modified. Experts studying it confirmed it was altered intentionally to avoid detection by common medical tests. It was created to stay hidden, slowly causing harm. This made it extremely difficult for doctors to diagnose the cause. The idea was for the boy to die without anyone knowing the true reason. Everyone would believe it was a strange and sudden illness. The man spent years preparing his plan. He studied, collected the creature, and changed its genetic code. Then, using fake documents and a stolen identity, he infiltrated the hospital dressed as a doctor. Everything was done with absolute precision. It was in many ways the perfect crime. At least it would have been if Lily hadn't intervened. No one expected a girl to be the one to stop the crime. The criminal probably never noticed her. She was just the cleaner's daughter, someone who had no power or importance. But Lily saw things no one else saw. She paid attention. She remembered her father's illness. And when she saw the same signs in the boy, she acted. The parasite had almost reached its final stage when Lily extracted it. Her action not only saved the boy's life, but also destroyed the criminal's plan. This changed everything. The case that was supposed to remain invisible now had evidence. The centipede was alive. It was studied, and the truth came to light. The police had a motive, a method, and a suspect. The hospital, shaken and horrified by everything that happened, wanted to make sure the man was caught. They couldn't take risks, so they worked with the authorities to prepare a trap. They assumed the man would return to check the parasite's progress or inject the last dose of his special formula. The plan was simple. The boy's ward was left exactly the same equipment, the same look. Everything was left as if nothing had changed. But inside the ward, they hid small cameras and microphones. Undercover agents stayed nearby, pretending to be regular hospital staff. Security remained vigilant, but without attracting attention. The idea was to make the man believe his plan was still working, that the parasite was still inside the boy, slowly fulfilling its purpose. The police were convinced he would return to give it another supplement, the liquid mixture that kept the parasite alive and active. They didn't know exactly when he would return, but based on his pattern, it had to be soon. The bait was ready. All that remained was for him to enter one more time. Meanwhile, Lily was in a quiet room with her mother. She was tired and still shaken by everything. But she knew her part was finished. Now it was up to the adults to catch the person responsible. Inside the hospital, everything seemed normal on the surface, but everyone was tense. Doctors continued to work. Nurses walked the corridors like any other day. But the truth was that every employee was warned. They saw the man's photo. They knew they had to report anything suspicious. In the surveillance room, officers monitored every corridor and every door. Hours passed. Then, the man entered the building. He wore a white coat, a badge, and walked calmly. At first, he seemed like just another doctor, but security recognized him immediately. It was the same man from the recordings. He was back. Officers followed him silently as he walked to the VIP wing. He moved confidently, unaware that the hospital was no longer safe territory for him. When he reached the boy's ward, he opened the door and walked in. This was his last mistake. Chapter 7. Caught in the act. The security team worked closely with undercover police to prepare the hospital room for the operation. The goal was clear: catch the man who almost killed the billionaire's son. Every detail had to be perfect. The boy's ward was left exactly as before. The machines were on, showing false readings indicating the boy was still unconscious and in critical condition. A mannequin was placed on the bed, covered with blankets and connected to equipment, to fool anyone who took a quick look. Hidden cameras were set in different corners of the room. Small microphones were hidden to catch any sound. The lights were left dimmed, mimicking the usual atmosphere of the ICU at night. The nearby corridor was also guarded by agents dressed as night shift staff. Everyone had a role, and everyone was ready. The trap depended on one factor: that the criminal would return to check the parasite or give it another dose of his special fluid. They knew he would return, and they were ready. Deep in the night, when the hospital was quiet and most people were sleeping, the man returned. Just as before, he was in a white coat and mask. He looked like a doctor doing a routine check. He walked with confidence, as if he belonged there. He walked down the corridor, and no one stopped him. He went straight into the ward. As soon as he crossed the threshold, the cameras began recording. The man advanced to the bed. He had a black briefcase. He put his hand in his pocket to take something out, but before he could do anything, the trap was sprung. Police officers entered from both sides of the room. They shouted for him to stop and drop the briefcase. The man froze for a moment, then tried to escape. He pushed one of the officers and ran into the corridor. Sirens went on. More police joined the chase. It didn't take long before he was caught and pinned to the ground. His plan had failed. He was caught red-handed. While handcuffs were put on him, the man shouted something chilling. This was only the beginning. He confessed that he planned to do the same to other children. He said this boy was only the first. He had a list of targets, children of powerful businessmen he hated. He thought of attacking them one by one, using the same parasite method. Officers opened his briefcase. Inside, they found several vials full of strange liquid. Containers with parasite larvae, labels, notes, and preparations ready for future attacks. Clearly, this wasn't an isolated crime. It was part of a larger and much more dangerous plan. But thanks to Lily, it was all over. She was the first and only one who saw the truth. Without her, the boy would have died, and others would have followed him. After the arrest, the hospital and police could finally relax. The threat had passed. The man was behind bars. The evidence was strong, and there was no doubt about what he did. Officers reviewed everything again, from the first symptoms to the final moments of the trap. At every step, Lily was the key element. She was the first to notice something strange. She remembered what happened to her father. She spoke up when no one believed her. She acted with courage when it mattered most. Dr. Morrison met with the police and hospital management. Everyone agreed. Without Lily, they would still be looking for answers. The boy would be dead, and the criminal would remain free. Free. Lily was the one who changed everything. But although the case was closed, something else was missing. Something Lily carried in her heart from the beginning. Finding justice for her father, who died the same way. Lily always knew her father's death wasn't natural. She tried to tell people about it before, but no one believed her. The doctor said they didn't know the cause, called it an unknown disease, and moved on. This time, no one could ignore her. But now, after everything that happened in the hospital, the truth finally became clear. The same type of parasite that almost killed the boy killed her father too. This meant someone used the same method on him. It wasn't an accident. It was a test. Maybe even the first time the criminal tried his plan. Lily's father, a simple construction worker, became the first victim. And because no one listened, the criminal got away with it. But no more. Evidence would be reviewed. His case would be reopened. And this time, people would take it seriously. This time, there would be real answers. Lily's voice now had power, and no one could ignore what she saw. Everyone in the hospital, from the security team to the most important doctors, began to talk about Lily in a new way. She was no longer just the cleaner's daughter. She was the girl who solved the mystery. She helped stop a dangerous criminal and save the boy's life. Although she was only 8 years old, she did what no trained doctor and no police officer could do. The hospital began preparing a report on the case, and Lily's name was written as the name of the person who changed everything. Her story began to spread, and people outside the hospital began to hear about her bravery. But for Lily, none of this mattered as much as one thing: the truth about her father. She wanted to clear his name. She wanted the world to know he didn't die without a reason. He was a victim, just like the boy. And now, thanks to her, the truth would finally come out. Chapter 8, The Legacy. The trap worked. The criminal was caught. But Lily's mission wasn't over yet. A few days after the arrest, when the hospital had already returned to normal life, Victor Vance returned. This time, he didn't walk the corridors with fear or stress. He walked slowly, holding his son's hand. The boy, already healthy, laughed and ran down the hospital corridor like any other happy child. His face was no longer pale, and the signs of illness disappeared. Doctors continued to monitor him, but everyone agreed he was out of danger. Victor stopped near the waiting room where Lily and her mother sat. He asked to speak to Lily. At first, Lily was surprised. She didn't expect to see the billionaire in person, but Victor knelt before her and thanked her, not just with words, but with real emotion. He told her that thanks to her, his son was alive. He told her she did what no one else could do. Not doctors, not security, not experts. Then he added something else. Her actions changed how he saw the world. Victor told Lily that before all this happened, he lived thinking money could solve everything. He always believed powerful people had more value, more knowledge, and more ability to change the situation. But Lily proved him wrong. She was just a child, a cleaner's daughter. And yet she saw the truth others missed. She spoke up when everyone ignored her. She acted when others remained motionless. Victor said now he understood that every life, rich or poor, is equal, and that every voice deserves to be heard. Then he promised something important. He said he himself would request an investigation into Lily's father's death. He wanted to know what really happened, and if it was connected to what happened to his own son. Lily listened silently. She didn't say much, but her eyes were full of emotion. For the first time, someone powerful took her seriously, and moreover, wanted to help her find the answers she had been looking for so long. Days later, the investigation into Lily's father's death was completed. Victor kept his word. He used his influence to have specialists review old medical records. They studied symptoms, chronology, and the few notes doctors wrote at the time. Everything pointed to the same parasite, the same type extracted from Victor's son. But in Lily's father's case, it wasn't placed by someone. It entered his body naturally during his work trip to Africa. He likely got infected working in unprotected conditions, near places where the parasite lived. The confirmation was hard to hear. It meant Lily's father wasn't a target like the boy, but still became a victim of the same deadly creature. What hurt most was knowing that if the doctors had listened to Lily, then her father could have survived. If they had taken her words seriously, the signs would have been recognized earlier. His life could have been saved. Victor was deeply moved by the truth. He spoke to the hospital board and then gave a press conference. Before cameras and microphones, he told the story of what happened, explained how his son was on the brink of death, how the parasite was used as a weapon, and how a little girl stopped it all. He said Lily not only saved a life, but revealed a big problem. The world often ignores the voices of poor people, especially children. Then he announced he would create a foundation named after Lily's father. The foundation would focus on researching neglected tropical diseases. Diseases that affect millions of people in poor zones, but receive little attention or funding. The foundation would also help hospitals improve how they listen to patients and their families, especially when something unusual happens. Victor said it was the best way to honor Lily's father, making sure no one else is ignored like him. The hall went quiet while he spoke. Everyone listened. Then Victor made another announcement. He said Lily would be the ambassador of the new foundation. This meant she would be the face of the project, helping to raise awareness, attending events, and reminding the world that sometimes the most important truths come from those you least expect. Lily would represent all children who are often left aside, ignored, or silenced. Now they would have someone to speak for them. Lily didn't fully understand what it meant to be an ambassador, but she knew it was something important. She was proud not that people applauded or took photos of her, but that her father's name wouldn't be forgotten. His death was finally understood, and something good would come out of it. Children in poor countries would get help, doctors would learn more, hospitals would listen better, and maybe one day another girl, just like her, would feel brave enough to speak up and be heard. The story didn't end with a prize or ceremony. Lily returned to her normal life, but nothing felt exactly the same. She continued to walk the same corridors with her mother. The hospital remained the same, but now people treated her differently. Nurses smiled at her. Doctors nodded when they saw her. Security guards greeted her with respect, but Lily didn't want fame. What mattered most to her was that her father's death was no longer just a painful memory. Now it was part of a story that helped others. Victor continued to support the foundation. Researchers started new studies. The news told the story across the country. And Lily, who used to be invisible, changed everything. She saved a life, solved a crime, and brought justice. But more than that, she showed the world that anyone, no matter how small, poor, or young, can make a difference. And now, thanks to her, many more children would have a chance to be heard. Conclusion. 6 months later, Lily stood on stage in a large hall. Around her were doctors, nurses, scientists, and hospital leaders from all over the world. The hall was full, and cameras were pointed at her, ready to record her words. Lily stood behind the microphone, holding a small note in her hand. She rehearsed her speech many times, but her voice still trembled a little when she started. "When a child says something is wrong, listen," she said. The hall went completely silent. Everyone listened carefully as Lily explained what happened. She talked about how no one listened when her father got sick. She told them that if someone had paid attention, then maybe he would be alive. She told how she saw the same signs again, this time in a boy who had everything: money, doctors, protection, and yet he almost died because the truth was ignored. Her voice was calm, but the words were powerful. She didn't speak like a professional. She spoke like someone who lived through it all. Lily explained that her father was a construction worker who got sick after working far from home with very little medical support. That when they returned to the hospital, he showed strange symptoms. And she remembered those signs, but no one believed they were important. She explained to the audience that although she was just a child, she saw what others didn't see, and that when the billionaire's son got sick, the same signs returned. Lily said she couldn't be silent that time. She didn't want another person to die like her father. So she acted. She said she wasn't brave because she had no fear. She was brave because she acted even while feeling fear. Everyone in the hall listened without blinking. Some doctors had tears in their eyes. Others nodded, remembering moments in their careers when they might have missed someone's voice. Lily reminded them that the truth doesn't always come from experts. Sometimes, the truth comes from someone small, someone easy to ignore, someone like her. When Lily finished speaking, the whole hall stood up and applauded. The applause lasted a long time. Lily looked at her shoes, a little embarrassed, but also proud. Her words reached everyone. She didn't use fancy language. She didn't give a scientific explanation. She just told the truth. And the truth was enough. From that moment, her story ceased to be just a memory. It became a symbol. Media shared the video of her speech. Hospitals printed posters with her phrase. Medical schools began using her case to teach future doctors. The photo of Lily holding the forceps at the very moment she pulled the parasite from the boy's throat went around the world. She became a symbol of bravery, truth, and the ability to listen. People from everywhere, from big cities to small villages, shared her story. They saw in her proof that no one is too small to make a difference. Lily saved a life and changed how people saw things. Soon, real changes began to happen. Hospitals around the world began looking for ways to better listen to patients, especially children. New rules were created, obliging doctors to take the words of young patients more seriously. Nurses were trained to notice when children say something feels wrong. Clinics developed new tools to help children explain their symptoms more clearly. Some hospitals even created special teams to review cases where a child's concern didn't match medical results. These changes weren't just about Lily's case. They were about the bigger idea that all voices, however small, are important in medical care. Lily's speech spread to medical conferences, classrooms, and even places where access to health was limited. Her words were translated into many languages. Doctors who never met Lily began to speak about her as if they knew her. She became part of a global conversation. And it all started because she refused to be silent when she saw something was wrong. Lily never asked for rewards, but people continued to thank her. She visited hospitals where doctors asked her to talk to sick children. She told them they could express themselves too. She reminded them it's okay to ask questions, even if it seems no one is listening at first. She told them their voices mattered. In the foundation bearing her father's name, she worked closely with scientists studying tropical diseases. She helped them understand how to explain things so children could understand. She also met with families who lost loved ones due to similar conditions. She listened to them just as she wanted someone to listen to her. Through it all, Lily remained the same, calm, kind, and strong. She didn't let the attention change her. She knew the most important thing wasn't fame. It was that her story helped others, and that her father's name was remembered for something meaningful. Over time, Lily's image became something more than a framed photo. It became part of medical books, training programs, and global health campaigns. Her story reminded people that listening is one of the most powerful tools in medicine. Reminded them that sometimes the key to saving a life isn't technology or money. It is empathy. Lily showed the world that the truth can come from anywhere, and that even a poor girl without training can see what experienced doctors miss. She had the courage to speak when it was hard. She had the strength to act when no one else did. Thanks to her, children in hospitals around the world began to be heard. Thanks to her, people learned to stop, listen, and believe. Lily lost her father, but saved a life. And by doing so, she changed the future. Her voice became a symbol of hope. And in hospitals everywhere, when a child said something was wrong, people finally listened. We have reached the end of this story. I am incredibly happy you watched until this moment. Thank you so much for watching. Write in the comments what you think, and which part was the best or worst. Don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.